Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Melon Thoughts with Johnny and Dave. And today we're discussing not one, not two, not three, but 4 episodes of The Last of Us because we have been busy bees, and every time we wanted to get a call going,
busy little bees.
There's been another episode that has come out, so sorry guys, but
sorry.
Yeah, you're going to get the full Monty today, so don't worry, we're not going to skip over everything, but we'll begin with episode 6, which is titled Kin, and that is probably because this is the reunion between Joel and Tommy. The episode starts with a big 3-month time jump, and we get to see a snowy America, or wherever they are. I can't remember the area. Was it Wisconsin? Probably not. I shouldn't be guessing places because
Arkansas. I don't know. Yeah, I've no idea.
Alaska. Yeah, I don't know. It's really cool.
I just remember Wyoming was like what we saw in the most recent episode. But
yeah, well, yeah, I think it is Wyoming because the most recent episode they go back to Wyoming. So yeah, it's Wyoming. So well, the first thing about this episode, which I thought was cool, was the old couple that don't take no shit.
Yeah, they were cool.
They were really cool. I fell in love with them straight away, and I like to pick out things that are not in the game and just go like, oh, that was a nice little addition. And this is maybe the first time we get to see Joel and Ellie really kind of bonding later. They're camping and they're talking about how Ellie wants to become an astronaut. That was always her ambition. She loves Sally Ride, and Joel talks about how he was a singer at one point. And you can kind of start to see where he's getting these PTSDs, like kind of flashbacks to his daughter. What did you make of that? Did you kind of think it's because he's fallen in love with Ellie now? Or like, what was the whole PTSD thing for you?
I don't know what you mean by the PTSD.
Do you remember?
Did he have some sort of there's internal conflict with himself or something? Or?
There was a couple of times in this episode where it started where he had to like lean on a pole and go like, and then Ellie was like, "Oh fuck, like no! A panic attack. If you die, like I die too." Yeah, panic attack. Probably more than PTSD. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I just kind of forgot about all that. I don't know. I just figured. He was having a bit of a panic attack because I think he finally had something in his life like back that he actually cared about.
Exactly, yeah.
And it was the first time he actually had a reason to live and a reason to go on. And now it's like, oh shit, if something happens to me, which is very possible and probable in this world, then if I die, then this girl dies. And then like before that, it was like, if I die, well, who gives a fuck? Yeah. He just doesn't give a shit about anything. And like, whatever. He just lived his life like. So from one day to the next and just, going out killing people could kill him. And he's like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. But now he actually has a reason to live. So it just makes that whole kind of idea of we need to stay alive so much more important. And I think that's what I got from it. But again, I thought it was going to develop into a bigger story. But in the end, it was just like, oh, no, that's fine.
No, I think that's exactly what it is. They're just trying to show you with each episode how he is getting closer. This was just one symptom of how he's getting closer to Ellie, and I assume it is because he's built up this big wall around himself, and again because when you play
he's becoming more vulnerable.
Yeah,
he's letting his guard down.
When you play the game, I can't remember how long the game is, but let's say it's about 12 hours of gameplay. So like you're obviously with these two characters.
Well, I played the game.
I played the game.
Actually, I haven't played the
game. But like you're with them for so long, and it's probably 12 hours of straight gameplay, but you can go off and explore and you can do this, that, and the other. So you kind of get to feel more connected with them. So the TV show has a limited time to kind of show you the beats and like, this is how Joel feels now. But anyways, they arrive at Tommy's camp. Joel reunites with Tommy, which is all nice. And then this is all, again, exactly the same as the game. This whole camp reminded me of The Walking Dead. Tommy admits that he's got a woman now. And he's preggers, and this kind of changes everything for Joel. Joel gets like super pissed, and then he wants to leave Ellie and all this crack. But good episode in general.
It was good. Plot. It was good. It kind of felt a little bit fillerish I at some points, but definitely, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe I say that now looking back on the season as a whole, and I can see like, oh, well, that wasn't the episode where everything kicked off and there wasn't huge things. But there was definitely, poignant moments in there as well. It was lovely that he gets reunited with his brother, and he's like, "Oh, thank God you're alive!" Because he hadn't heard from him for so long, and there was radio silence, and he was just delighted initially that his brother was still alive. Then you could see he was kind of a bit pissed off, like, "Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you let me know? Like, I've been risking my life to try and come and save you, thinking that you were in trouble, but you're here living the life, and you got a wife and you got a kid in the way and stuff." So, it seemed like he definitely went through some different stages of like initial just joy and relief to see his brother is safe, delight to see that he's there, and delight to just be together again. But then afterwards, be like, "Why have you made me suffer without like when you've been here living it up?" So it was cool to see those different emotions, and then also to kind of see how there was such joy, and it was so short-lived as well. It was like, "Oh, it's so great." Oh, wait a minute. So that was kind of cool as well.
You knew it couldn't really last weird as well, because you knew Tommy wasn't going to become part of a trio with the two of them. Oh well, I knew it, but like I'd say most people could sense that.
I'm kind of glad that. I mean, I could sense after a few episodes, especially after they killed that kind of your one that was the main boss of the little group in
her
city was it?
Atlanta.
I was gonna say Atlantic City.
I don't know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Your one.
Anyway, when they killed her off, and I was like, okay, good. So we're not going to be like settled down in one base for the whole series. We're going to be moving around a lot. So we kind of got that idea that that's what's going to be happening with the series. So again, even there as well, yeah, as you said, we kind of knew Tommy wasn't going to become one of the group now, and they were going to go off and have little episodic adventures with him. So you kind of knew something was going to happen there where they would have to become separated again. But there was a lot of kind of weird tension that was like I didn't really understand, like the tension between Tommy's new wife and all. I mean, I did understand it, but I was like, I thought it was building this tension in order to go somewhere with it. And then in the end, it didn't really go anywhere with it. I mean, it just seems like it was tension for the sake of tension, which, I mean, in this series it's just a really tense series.
I think it's just the fact that she knows exactly what Joel is like, and she just feels like, oh my God, this is the guy that I've heard so much about. And the audience don't really know this backstory of Joel. But like he's kind of touched on it a few times where he's just said like, I've done really bad things. I've done things to survive. Tommy's also done these things, but Tommy has like come through the other end, and it's kind of like Joel is a bit pissed off that he's changed his life for the better and Joel's still stuck in behind. And then I think that Tommy's wife can kind of sense that Joel isn't a changed man like Tommy. So I feel like that's where the tension kind of is coming from.
Sure.
In my opinion. Sure. But anyways, that episode wraps up where Joel ends up. Well, there was a lovely scene where Ellie admits her feelings, and she says, "Everyone that I love leaves me." And Joel's
that was sad.
But then they of course make up, and then they head for the Fireflies, and then boom! At the end of this episode, Joel gets stabbed by some randomer, and we're like, "Oh, is he dead? Is he not dead?"
Yeah, fuck's sake, that was annoying. You're like, "Fuck those guys!"
I know, yeah.
Random shitty knife. I think that this episode, like, when they went to that, when they met Joel's brother Tommy and all that kind of stuff, and we saw that the start of where both Joel was accepting that, okay, I feel like I have an attachment to this girl now, and then also Ellie was kind of starting to admit, like, oh, everyone I love leaves me, that what you just said. Mm-hmm. I think this is where I think I really started to fall in love with Ellie's character. I thought that not just her character, but the actress and the way that she's
Ramsey,
just absolutely Bella Ramsey. She's absolutely smashing it. I was like, she's such a good actor. I just wanted to mention that as well. I thought that she really started to come into her own here a little bit. And then I think the first few episodes, it was kind of like she was the kind of funny comic relief sort of little side, the little sidekick. And she's just there to bring a bit of entertainment in. But I think now, after this, she became like, it's like almost two lead characters between her and Pedro Pascal. I just thought that she was brilliant.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it earlier before as well, where I might have said, even when the casting was announced, or maybe when I saw the first trailer, or I can't really remember, but I remember kind of thinking like, I love Pedro Pascal and I loved Bella Ramsey in her short appearance in Game of Thrones, but like, I just don't feel like they're the Joel that's Joel and that's Ellie. But like now, because I've played the game, but I think now it's like completely flipped, and I'm like, yeah, that is the real Joel and that is the real Ellie.
Yeah, that's a testament to how good they've, like how well they've done.
Like
they've been able to, because it's like a book reader.
Exactly.
And when you have when you read a book and then you go and you watch the adaptation, and you're like, oh, I've got such a clear image in my mind of what I've thought of these characters, these people for years, and now I have this different image in my brain because you're showing me something else. It's very hard to turn the book reader to say, oh no, the film version of this character is actually a better version. Usually people say, oh, I like that, but I still prefer my original person that I had invented in my mind, I suppose. But if you're able to turn the audience and say, this new one that you're saying now is actually fits better or feels more right, that's a huge accomplishment.
Especially with Ellie. I think the old Ellie, I think the actual game design was based off what's that actress's name? The girl from Juno. Can't remember the actress's name, and she looks exactly like her, and I think it sounds like her as well. And she's just kind of she's actually transitioned to a male now, so I can't remember her name, but she was a pure tomboy.
The one from Umbrella
Academy, exactly.
As well. What's
Ellen Page, or now it's Eli Page, maybe.
Sorry. What's okay?
But anyways, that's what the character was. I think that was the character design, and it was pure tomboy, and she just looked like Ellen Page, and I just couldn't get that out of my mind. And then when I saw this new Bella, when I saw this new Ellie, I was like, I don't know, but I think I way prefer her. I think she's definitely the right age profile as well. So yeah.
Why? What age is Ellie in the game? Is she younger?
She's probably old. No, she just seems older. She's probably like 14, but she seems like she could be older, and she's just like, she's exactly like how Ellen Page is. She's probably older, but always looks like a kid. That kind of way.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Kind of very young face.
But anyways, the next episode is called Left Behind, and this is basically the entire episode. Well, it opens up with Ellie trying to save Joel, but then it just jumps into a big flashback episode, and we don't need to get into everything that happens in this episode. But one thing I do want to mention is that all of this is interesting because it's not in the game, but it is DLC, which is downloadable content. So this is something that you could buy after the fact. I've actually never played this part of the game, so in research of this, I've gone and looked at like the comparisons, and it's really cool because it is
well done, Dave. You've researched.
Well, I wanted to do it for my own sake as well. Like I was like, I don't remember this part. Like this is all made up with like Ellie and Riley. There are mentions of Riley in the game, her best friend, but there's no relationship connection between the two of them. But that's, but apparently it is in the DLC, like it's all verbatim, like scene by scene, everything down to the wolf mask and the clown mask that they end up wearing and all that. So yeah, basically there's not much to say about this episode apart from I thought it was beautifully well done. I thought the set design was unreal. Like it's this giant shopping center.
Class.
Like did they actually
kind of gives you a sort of
or how did they do that?
Probably. I mean, I don't know. They have obviously huge sets and stuff, but I mean, it definitely gave me Stranger Things vibes. I think.
Yes.
With the whole, destroyed shopping mall with, arcades and stuff like that as well.
That's right. The shopping mall from Stranger Things.
So I definitely got vibes from that off it. But in my general opinions about this episode, I really liked it, and I spoke to someone about it afterwards, and I remember someone told me that they thought it felt a little bit filler this episode because. And I said, look, I understand that as well. When you're watching an episode of a series and there's a main plot, and then suddenly you go on this complete tangent, like in episode 3 as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And the main story doesn't move along. Sometimes you're kind of going, I want to know what happens with the main guys. But I would say that now not quite to the same level as with episode 3, but I thought there was a really lovely, just like little individual story where I was, and also the tension. Like I said a moment ago that maybe sometimes there's a bit of tension just for tension's sake, and it kind of this episode you knew it was going to end bad. You knew that her friend was going to die. You knew that she was going to get bit, and all the time it's kind of like when you're watching a horror movie, you're so tense and on edge, but you don't know what's going to happen. Here you knew exactly what was going to happen, and you were still as on edge, maybe if not more, because like, oh my god, is it going to happen now? When's it going to happen? And they also, what was really kind of genius and also like cunty of them was that they gave you like a fake out where Ellie first, when she leaves Riley and she storms off, and then you hear this kind of like screaming and you're like, oh my god, it's happening, here we go, strap in. And then she runs back and it's like, no, it's this track that's just playing this scary thing, this Halloween theme. And you're like, oh bollocks, now I gotta go back to this. Because you know when some like zombie or there's something crazy that's attacking you, you're not so tense at that moment. You're just like watching it and absorbing the content. But before it happens, you're feeling this tension and you're feeling this like the anticipation, the nervousness, that anxiety for when's it going to happen. That's almost worse than the actual when it actually happens. So that's how I felt when she came back, and you're like, oh my god, it's going down now. Here we go. And then it's like, oh no, it's not. You still gotta wait a bit more. It's like,
I felt the exact same. Where you're like, at least it's happening now, and I know how it's happening. I have to go back into building up my bastards.
yeah. But again, I think that's kind of clever as well. And again,
very
as
clever.
I said,
I thought so too.
Having something. I mean, they could have had this episode with just like zombies fucking everywhere. But the fact that they only had like one small piece of that, and they managed to make you feel like tense and nervous for the entire episode, is kind of props to them as well. That's pretty good going. So
absolutely. And like you mentioned how someone said to you they felt like it was a bit of a filler episode. Like they still contribute so much to adding character to the characters as well. Like you get to see Ellie's whole backstory and where she's coming from, and then we see it in the very last episode, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, where she's like really quiet. And I don't know, there was part of me that's thinking, is it because their journey's come to an end, or is she thinking about Riley, or is she thinking about her mother? But like there's you have so much more in the tank to think about when it comes to Ellie. So and you mentioned episode 3 as well, so there's 9 episodes. So can you imagine if someone said to you, like, you're gonna have 9 episodes, 2 of them are barely going to have Joel and Ellie, and you'll still be madly in love with Joel and Ellie by the end? I think it's really well done.
No, and I think it's just good writing as well, that you go into the series and you start to get to know these characters, and then after a few episodes they go, here's another missing piece of the puzzle that you didn't even really know was missing, but as soon as you see it, you're kind of going, right, that adds a whole new depth to her personality. And yeah, I completely agree. And then there was other times where you're like, when she first helps Joel kill that guy, and he's like, oh, you shouldn't have had to do that, and then she says, it wasn't my first time. Then it's when you see that episode, you're like, oh, okay. So I know that she obviously had to end up killing her friend, which she also mentions in the last episode as well. But as I said, it's like that was a little missing piece of the puzzle that you didn't really know. Like, she mentions it and then you kind of forget about it, and then when you see that scene again, you're like, this is the only person she's actually had to kill before was her best friend and her like love interest. So that was cool. I liked that a lot.
Great, absolutely great. So the next episode is entitled When We Are in Need, and this is of course taken from David's little passage of the Bible that he reads to his encampment. So this is probably it's such a good thing for a series when you keep saying, like, okay, no, this is my favorite episode, and then the next one comes out and you're like, no, this one is this is the best. And they've done that at least 3 or 4 times with me, I think. But this was such a mental episode. Ellie's hunting skills, they pay off, and it's very similar to the game mechanics. So this is, now I was about to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but you wouldn't know, but I think this is the first part of the game that you actually get to play as Ellie, because Joel is like injured or whatever, and you get to like go around with a bow and arrow rather than a rifle, and you get to hunt and all this kind of stuff. Right. Cool. And the same thing happens where you get the deer, and then next thing David and James pop up. Now, cool thing, a couple of cool things about this episode. So James, who is the right-hand man of David, he is Troy Baker is the actor, and he's the guy that actually plays Joel in the games. So yeah, I'm sure you've probably heard that.
I heard that.
I heard this a good while back, even before the episodes were coming out, that like Troy Baker will make an appearance, you just don't know who. So it was cool that he plays James. Another thing I wanted to mention as well is, even though everything plays out nearly exactly as the game, the cool thing that they added in here was you don't get any point of views or perspectives from David's camp. Like, you're always playing as Ellie or Joel, so you don't get to see David back at the camp like that creepy scene with the girl where she's crying and she wants to bury her father, and you don't realize that David's like, oh yeah, we'll bury him in the spring, but he's actually like, no, we're going to eat him for dinner tonight. And that was also menacingly cruel when he's basically eating her father in front of him. And yeah, it's just sick. And I think it takes a while for the penny to drop. Actually, did it take a while for the penny to drop for you, where you actually knew what was going on? Like, especially between the chefs when she's like, what is this? And he's like, it's venison, and kind of gives her an eye.
I didn't know. It definitely didn't click immediately for me. I mean, it was one of those things that, I mean, when they said, what is this? And they were like, it's venison. I was just like, oh yeah, fair enough, it's venison. That's fine. I mean, I didn't really have any reason to second guess it.
Yeah.
But then later, also when, like, initially when they had that conversation with the daughter, like, oh, can we bury my father? And he was like, no, the ground's much too hard. We can't. I was kind of like, oh, they're probably going to use that body for I was like, no, actually, what my first thought was, I didn't know what her father died of. So I was like, maybe he had gotten bitten or something. So when she was like, can we bury him? My first thought was, they were like, we'll wait till the spring, but he was like, secretly, no, we're going to burn that body.
I think I thought that too, actually.
That was my very first thought. And then when he was like, the ground's too hard, I'm like, yeah, well, they're obviously just not going to, expend their little energy that they have if they're low on food and stuff. They're not going to do any extra effort to whatever. But then, yeah, it does click a little while later on. You're like, okay. But
I think I had the same thought with you, where I was like, oh, they're probably just going to burn the body. And then it kind of clicked with me that I was like, oh, there's that whole cannibals part of the game where you run into the cannibals and you're like, oh shit, this is that. I think it was when the chef was like, this is venison. And it still didn't click with me until the very next scene, the door bursts open and then they bring in the deer and they're like, we've got deer. And I was like, oh, but what were they eating before? Oh, right. So that's where it kind of clicked with me. Anyways, we get to see Ellie interacting with David and James, and David tries to earn Ellie's trust, and he kind of seems like a nice, calm, well-spoken man. And then he drops the bomb about that crazy man and the little girl that killed his friend, and that's when you realize that we're back in a tense scene again. It's not like, you can't let your guard down. For a minute, you kind of feel like, David, maybe he's a nice guy. But anyways, she gets the penicillin. Sure. She stabs Joel right in the wound, which... Is that how you're supposed to use penicillin? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. When I saw that, I was like, I don't know what I'd do. Probably stick it in his arse. I don't know.
I think it's supposed to inject her right in the eye, like right into the face, because it's close to the brain and.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way to go. I don't know. Yeah, I was like, that doesn't look right, but then I was like, I'm not gonna say it because I don't know.
But I don't know enough about penicillin to dispute it. So
yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to take that as gospel. Like, I mean, if I'm ever in a situation where I need to inject myself with penicillin, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, obviously you just put it straight into the wound and just jab it into your liver.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But anyway, I mean, I was like, oh, well, will that work? We'll see. Seemed to be very effective. She gave him like 2 doses and he was up and about in no time. So so fair play. That penicillin, jeez.
I'd love a bit of that. But that was one thing that somebody said to me. They were like, I have a couple of questions about, because I'm kind of the guru because I played the games, and so
you're the guru.
Yeah. So I was asked. I have a couple of questions about this, and I was able to answer Bing Bang Bosh. But then the question of like, how come Joel was able to like recover so quickly after like being completely paralyzed there for a few moments ago? And I was like, it's just movie magic, like, you just gotta overlook that, like
exactly, like the fact that he'd be able to get up and like move away a little bit. I'm like, okay, fine, I could probably get behind that. The fact that he was able to get up, sneak off and like hide in this little corner without making any noise, that was just kind of ridiculous. But I was like, yeah, for me, I was like, for the basis of the movie or for the episode, and just to, I don't know, just for point A to get to point B, I was like, that's fine. I'm not gonna dispute it. I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm not watching this anymore.
It's one of those things.
I'm just like,
and I think,
it's like, fine.
I think they did it well as well. It wasn't like he got the penicillin and he was like, oh, I'm alive or whatever. His first kill was, he was sneaking, but he like fell on that dude and fell on him with the knife into his neck, and then like. Then after he had died, he was still like lying on the floor, crawling around, and then like, scene by scene, he got a little bit better and better. But Anyways,
this he did recover like astonishingly quickly,
astonishingly, yeah.
I was just pissing myself laughing. I was like, Joel is basically dead. He's been dead for like 2 days, and then he wakes up for a half a second, and he murders someone. Like, he can't even hold his own weight, and he's just murdering someone with a knife.
Yeah.
Like, this man loves to kill. That'll make him feel more alive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because this scene kicks off Joel's mad rampage, and there's always kind of that feeling in the back of my mind that I just don't want them to condense Joel's character or make him feel a bit too protagonistic for the show, for the viewers, and that always happens.
Too much of a hero.
Yeah, you don't want him to be too much of a hero. You want him to be Joel. And again, this scene is the exact same as the game, where he literally tortures the guys. He puts the knife in the mouth and he's like, point, same as the game, and then stabbing him in the knee. Says the exact same thing. He's like, I'm going to pop your kneecap off if you don't tell me where the girl is, and then just brutally murdering the other guy because he's like, I believe it. That was brilliant.
That was amazing. Yeah. It's like, he told you what you want. He's like, yep, I believe it.
Yeah, and he's just like, fuck you, I'm not telling you anything. He's like, you don't have to, I believe him. Yeah,
exactly. And it, so the guy basically told Joel, what he told you is the truth. He's like, yeah, I know, cheers, thanks, now I can kill you too.
It's just brilliant. And again, it's another scene that shows you how much Joel is loving Ellie, but it's probably not the best scene to portray that. But like, yeah, he's really.
I think Joel shows his love by how much death and like brutality he deals out.
I will kill for you. So literally, I will kill everyone for you.
I do kill for you. Yeah.
So cut back to Ellie. She's trapped in the cage, and this is where she discovers that they're cannibals by seeing the ear on the floor. And she kind of,
that was very sloppy cleanup.
Very sloppy, yeah, like ear to the ground.
Sloppy Joes.
Yeah, but we get the scene of David trying to kind of, have one of those scenes of like, we're not too dissimilar, you and I, and trying to get close to Ellie, and they hold hands, and then she breaks his finger, and that's brilliant, where she calls out her name, and she's like, tell them Ellie is the one that broke your fucking finger. So
yeah, she was
so good in this scene.
So
yeah,
good,
very good.
But that was so creepy, like, because I remember watching that, and my girlfriend was like, "Oh my god, is he going to try and like, hit on her, even though she's a kid?" And I was like, "No, he's just going to be like, get her on his side." And then as the scene went on, I was like, "Oh my god, he is."
David is really the creepy. Worst. Like, if if cannibalism isn't the worst thing that your villain is, then you've got a bad villain in your hands. Like, he's basically a pedo villain, cannibal, sicko. Yeah, he's
ginger, which is the worst of all.
Oh, poor David. Yeah, but
gross. No, actually, I was gonna make a point about him as well. I was like, that's amazing acting. He did a fantastic job. Like, in the one episode, that shift of going from this like, oh, this guy seems like a trustworthy guy, he seems like a nice guy, then having this kind of like flick of a switch, or when he was speaking to that other girl who was kind of like almost like his adopted daughter in the camp as well, and he just smacks her across the face.
Yeah.
And that was class as well. And why did he smack her? She said that something like, you should kill them.
Yeah, you should kill them. And then he's just like, don't speak when your father is speaking. Or he said something like,
yeah. And he said, your
father.
And
he kind of refers himself as a father, and it's just creepy.
Yeah, I was like, when he said that, I was like, okay, does he mean like he's the father of the tribe? Like, I'm the shepherd, these are my sheep. But then he sits down at the table with her, so I was like, oh, maybe he is kind of almost like her adopted father.
While he's eating her real father.
Exactly, yeah, pretty much, yeah. How's your father? He's dead. Yeah. No, but how is he?
Yeah. Delicious. So then we get the scene where David tries to bring Ellie out and I guess kill her, and she bites him and says like, you're infected too. And then
that was class. Yeah, that was really cool. Really quick thinking.
Really quick thinking. Yeah, because when she said that, I was like, what's she talking about? And I was like, oh yeah, can she do that? Can she infect other people by biting them?
I mean, if she's shifted someone, like if she's given someone a good kiss and there's a bit of teeth involved, I mean, that's you like, oh, I killed another person.
Yeah,
Oh no,
God, like that's
no.
nightmare.
Yeah.
Nightmare fuel. But then she kills Troy Baker. So she kills James, stabs him in the neck with the butcher knife or the cleaver.
Yeah, that was a good kill.
Good kill, yeah. Because it is one of those things where you're like, how's she going to get out of this? And are they going to make it like kiddie or stupid? But it all makes sense. Like she grabs it perfectly as soon as David looks at his hand. Kills off James, and then she runs, and then we get this is a big scene then in the game as well, where she's hiding in this flaming building, and like when you're in the game, you're creeping around the corner, and you hear David just going, "Ellie, come out," just like they do in the TV show. Like there's so many scenes where even if I hadn't played the game, I would feel like this just feels like a PlayStation game
gameplay,
where you're kind of creeping around, and then the bad guy is kind of going, Ellie, come out, wherever you are. And David is kind of
now as someone like as in it's probably really difficult for you to get out of the mindset of the game because you've played it, and so I'll try and be that voice of someone who hasn't played the game either. And I think that in the first couple of episodes, when I knew, okay, this is based on a game, and I was getting into it. And we spoke about that in our first episode as well, I think, where we said, okay, here were a couple of points where even me as someone who doesn't play a game, I was like, oh, I could definitely see this being a game and seeing it as a scene where this happens and you have to go off and whatever. I kind of forgot about it completely until maybe the very last episode.
Well, that's a great thing as well.
That's exactly my point. I mean, it's kind of, I just got so invested in the story, and the fact that I had never played the game, it was like, I didn't relate it to like, oh, this is very, gameplay mode. It wouldn't make sense in a real show. I didn't feel that at all. It felt to me like it was a real show. And when you say to me, oh, this is the game, it's so cool, I'd be like, oh yeah, I can totally imagine how they did that. Maybe there's one or two small parts, but for the most part, for sure, I thought it was just like, no, this makes sense as it's like standalone little story or series. So that's my 2 cents.
No, absolutely, you're right, and none of those are drawbacks for me. It just makes me kind of feel like that they care to make the game players remember or remind them like how the game
I think they're doing that as well. I think they're showing that by having the dialogue, as you've mentioned a few times, having the dialogue basically spot on to what it was in the game.
Yeah.
It also is just a big like thumbs up to the dialogue of the actual original game as well, to say how like brilliant that was and how good their story arcs were and how their character development was amazing for like, a game. You don't need to, when you're playing a PlayStation game, the story doesn't need to be the most amazing thing ever. Usually, very often, like if you're playing a Call of Duty or something, very often it's like just some gammy story. But you're like, and I'm always just like skipping the story. I'm like, come on, let me give me put a gun in my hand and let me have it, like, that kind of thing. So, I mean, if it's gone to the stage where you're playing a game and the story is this good, that's a pretty good sign.
Well, that's why it won Game of the Year and so many awards. Like it's been touted as one of the greatest games ever, I think. But it's just one of those famous games that everyone kind of reverts back to and kind of changed the way gamers make games these days, or game developers, I should say. But anyways, before wrapping up this episode 8, just I think I remember hearing Neil Druckmann, the creator of the show and the game, talking about how David in this burning building, he kind of represents the devil and Ellie is trapped in his hell. And it's really cool because it's like he's there almost torturing, taunting her and like, come out wherever you are. And it's the same as the game as well. The door's locked, you can't get out. You have to go through the devil basically to win, which is what she does. Right. She brutally murders him, which is great. But also you get David's final, I don't know, is it his final line, but he says something creepy like, oh, I like them when they're struggling or something. Creepy like that. And
he's such a freak. Like as if at that point you don't already hate him enough.
Yeah,
you did get another one or two creepy lines from him. So that was really good. I mean, that entire scene. I mean, I think he had a chance to put the fire out at the very beginning if he had. The
curtain was on fire.
Just kind of curtain was on fire, and he just looked at it. He's like, be grand. He just kind of walks off, looks back. Literally 30 seconds later, he's like, shit. Now the whole wall is on fire, and I definitely can't put that out. So I think he missed the boat on that. But I suppose he was probably just like, he was kind of freaking out on the fact that, Ellie was escaping and that kind of stuff. So I could see why that would happen. But that whole scene, I really appreciate that they gave Ellie that whole. I'm sure that's probably the way it played out in the game as well. And if that's the case, well, then I appreciate that in the game they gave that scene to Ellie as well, because obviously most other series or most other whatever you'd expect in this kind of situation, maybe Ellie might get a couple of little kills in, like without, like kind of like to catch them by surprise, like that kill that she had on, was it James? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Where she gets him with the cleaver, like a couple of sort of surprise kills. But then when it comes down to like the main villain, you'd expect like the big macho man
Joel,
like Pedro Pascal to
shining
come
armor,
in and he's going to come in and take that big kill. But it was really class that they gave that to Ellie, and she completely, she defended herself and she stood up on her own 2 feet, and also she was the one that was being traumatized by this guy and being threatened by this guy. So the fact that she overcame that and she killed him. That was class.
Definitely.
And I love the brutality of all of it as well. I will say the one thing that I was like, that looks weird, is when after she murdered him and she came outside, she wasn't covered head to toe in blood. I was like, where's all the blood? She's just been like smacking some guy in the head with a cleaver for, like, she must have stabbed him, I don't know, like 30 times.
Yeah.
And there should be a little bit of blood splashback. If I know anything from watching Quentin Tarantino, I know that there should be blood all over.
Yeah, even a paper cut, you'd be covered in blood in a Quentin Tarantino
exactly.
movie. Yeah, so Ellie, David references it earlier. He says, like, we're kind of the same, you and I. We both have violent hearts, and this is where you get to see Ellie's violent heart come out of the closet. And she basically butchers David's face and then runs into Joel's arms. And then this is the first time that Joel calls her baby girl, and then you feel like, this is like, yeah. I feel complete with their relationship. Like, he's finally like admitting, like, you're a surrogate father at this point. But yeah. And then that leads straight on to episode 9, which is entitled "Look for the Light," which is probably a reference to the end of the TV show, but also this is one of the Fireflies kind of sayings. They always say, like, find the light or something along those lines. And so the first scene, so again, this is new, not in the game. We get introduced to Ellie's mom giving birth while attacked, which is pretty crazy.
Oh god, yeah.
And I guess actually I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I don't actually know myself, but I don't think they ever explain in the game how Ellie is immune. Not that I remember.
Yeah. So that's kind of what because I remember when I was watching this, I remember straight after, or maybe a few minutes after, we were talking about it. So I paused the episode and I was saying to my girlfriend, I was like, because when she's saying to her friend, you take her, and she's like, oh, I cut the cord before I got bit.
Yeah.
We're like, well, we know that's not true.
Yeah,
it's a lie.
exactly.
She got bit before she cut the cord. And then I can't remember. I think my girlfriend said something like, oh, is she breastfeeding her? And I was like, no, she's definitely not breastfeeding her, because she cut the cord quickly, because you could see that her reaction was quickly cut the cord because I've just been bitten. So obviously then she wasn't going to breastfeed because she knew she'd been infected and that would infect the child as well. So my thought was, when she'd been bitten, and then between her being bitten and cutting the cord, a very tiny trace amount of whatever this thing just went through, that umbilical cord got into the system, but such a small,
kind of like a
amount.
Vaccine. It's kind of like when you're getting a vaccine or something.
Exactly. Basically, the amount that you would have in a vaccine went into her, and that would never happen in any other situation, because you could never have a situation where you're getting a small amount through an umbilical cord, which can suddenly be cut off, or the source is cut off. If you're bitten by someone else, you're bitten. It's in your bloodstream, and you can't stop that source now. So
that's clever.
I thought it was really clever. Really clever as well. Yeah. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I think I think that's probably right.
Like, again, I wasn't that confused. I think that's how it was. I have to admit, when I was watching this episode, I'm watching it in a hotel, and the hotel is built over a nightclub, and I could hear the music next door way louder than I could hear the episode, so it was very distracting.
Oh, really?
But yeah, but look, at the same time, I feel like I got all the main bits and bobs. I had the subtitles on, but I do need to rewatch the last episode again, the last episode of The Last of Us. But
the last of The Last of Us.
Yeah. But just one cool thing to note, this scene, Ellie's mom is played by Ashley Johnson, who is the voice actress for Ellie in the game. So it's another.
I was like, she looks really like an older Ellie.
Yeah. So yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. So that was cool, and it is nice how,
like, an older Bella Ramsey, I should say. She looks like. I think I was like, maybe they found this actress because she looks very like Bella Ramsey. That's what I thought at the time. I didn't realize that she was So she's the voice actress for Ellie.
Yeah, she's the voice actress
It's
for
good
Ellie.
they got them both in.
Yeah, they get them both in. There's a couple of other actors and actresses. In fact, there is another one, but it's for in this last episode. One of the nurses plays a character who appears in the second game, so there's no point getting into that. But we can talk about it when the season 2 comes out.
Right.
So in 2 years' time, we'll come back to that thought.
Sure.
But yeah, the rest of the game, or sorry, the rest of the episode plays out beat by beat. They arrive in the city with the hospital. By the way, before this episode happened, I was thinking like, how the hell are they going to wrap up this show? They're either not going to finish, they're going to leave on a cliffhanger, or else this episode is going to have to be an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And it was the shortest episode in the entire series, 43 minutes. And that is...
Was there not a shorter one? I thought there was a shorter one that was like...
This is the shortest, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the shortest one.
But it was definitely another one that was similar in length, like around 40 minutes.
Yeah. Well, anyways, it was bloody short. And I was kind of thinking, how the hell are they going to do this? But anyways, let's get into it. Ellie seems a little bit distant with Joel, which was really annoying for me because I was like, finally they could be happy together. But no, the show doesn't let us be happy for not even a single second. Like, Ellie's kind of distant, but I think it's what do you think the reasons are? I was first thinking like, oh, is it because
I thought
of
it was
Riley,
really sweet,
or is it because of like that their journey's coming to an end, or what did you think?
Oh no, I thought it was just completely to do with what happened at the end of the previous episode, that she's really traumatized.
Yeah.
I was just like, she's losing her childish spark and her, childish kind of happy-go-lucky kind of thing. I know she's had a pretty traumatic life already, but I think because she...
I didn't even think of that.
Did you not? Because I also said it to my girlfriend. I said at the beginning of this episode, when we saw her walking around and she had a much more serious, somber face, I said she looks and feels so much older now than she did at the beginning of the series.
100%.
And I think that's it. I think she's growing up.
Yeah.
And she's just, her childish, boisterous kind of happiness is kind of just fading away because she's just like, life is shit. I'm having to deal with lots of stuff. And I just thought it was like just traumatic.
Yeah.
And that's also why I thought, if she was just having a day, like a few episodes back, if she was just being a bit pissy one day and in a bad mood, Joel would have just been silent and he would just been like, yeah, whatever. But I think the fact that she had gone through this traumatic experience, and I think Joel was recognizing that, and he was trying to be the one to, bring up conversation, and he was really good out of it. You can see he's out of his comfort zone as well, trying to just, make conversation. And I was like, he's completely making conversation to try and distract Ellie from what, all these bad thoughts that she's having. I mean, I don't know, maybe you could say something else, but for me, it was 100% about the what she'd just gone through, and she just, maybe she'd killed people before in a roundabout way. She killed her friend, but that was, her friend had already become a zombie. She'd assisted a kill of that young guy in Atlantic City, we think it is. And I'm trying to remember, did she kill anybody else in the series?
I don't think so.
But then when she gets to that episode, she kills your man James with a cleaver. And she brutally kills David as well. So,
but not just that, like it was the fact that she was about to be raped.
She was about to be eaten. Yeah, she was about to be raped, eaten alive, chopped up into little pieces.
Yeah.
Not eaten alive, sorry. Chopped up into little pieces, and then basically that they were going to eat
mentally tormented. She almost lost Joel. There was a whole lot going on in one episode.
Exactly. And before any of that, like that traumatic shit happened, she had to survive on her own for a while, go out, try and hunt a deer on her own, get some penicillin, bribe some random dangerous men that she comes across, to try and get penicillin.
She probably did a lot of growing up in that episode too, because now that you mention it, there isn't a single humorous moment or humorous bone in her body in the episode before either, because obviously Joel isn't there. He's like dead, and she has to do all the stuff on her own, and she's all like, put the penicillin on the ground and step away. So like she is an adult in that episode. So it's even more development.
So I think that in previous episodes there had been a sort of like a dangerous traumatic experience, and then she comes out of it, and the next day she wakes up and she's back to her usual reading puns from her book and stuff. And this time it was just, it's getting heavier, it's getting more difficult. So that's definitely what I thought. But then I thought they had a really beautiful moment where they kind of both admit, and like Joel admits, like, look, when he's speaking about, you know, the death of his daughter and stuff, and she says, "Oh, so is it true that time heals all wounds?"
Yeah.
And he says, "It wasn't time."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god, that's so sweet!"
So sweet.
And that was really, really nice. And I kind of thought for a moment, like, "Oh, is this really the first time that Joel is almost admitting it to himself that this is now his new kind of his new replacement for his daughter?"
Surrogate,
kind of thing.
yeah.
This is new. This is what's going to take that place. That's going to take it. So I think he'd kind of had these feelings before, but maybe that's the first moment that he's kind of just actually, you know, he's recognizing it out loud.
yeah.
And he's admitting it. He's admitting it to Ellie, but he's also, I think he's actually making that personal recognition of that the same truth as well. So I thought that was just really beautifully done. I thought it was gorgeous. And then after that, the mood kind of lightened a little bit, and he was like, "Oh, now I want to hear some stupid puns."
Yeah.
And she's like, and then they go back to, and then that's exactly what happened that when we were watching it. As soon as they started to be like, "Oh, everything's back to being happy again," we were like, "Yeah, this is going to last literally like 20 seconds," and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and yeah, you mentioned that, I guess, time heals all things, and I'm not 100% sure if I'm right on this. I didn't look it up, but I don't remember that from the game, because it was really beautiful when you hear it in the TV show, and I was like, actually, this might be an original TV show thing, and I was like, that is a really nice line added in. And Joel admits that the other guy that shot him was himself, and he actually attempted suicide. Again, I don't think any of that is from the game as well, so I thought that was really cool, bringing out more of Joel's character. And you can see where Ellie is like, "I'm glad it didn't work out," and he's like, "I am too." And you just kind of get to see Joel really feeling full again. He's becoming more human again. Just before that scene takes place, though, I just want to mention, because this is kind of an iconic scene from the game, is when they actually get to see the giraffes. And I'm not really sure why it's so iconic, but it was, I think, especially for when that game came out at the time, games were still not as beautiful as this game. And when you get to like pet the giraffe and see the vast open world in the background, it was just one of those things where it was like, this is just stunning. And it was so nice that it's taken place in a zombie apocalypse kind of game. And I don't know, there's something special about that scene. And there was something special about the scene in the TV show as well, because you really get to see Joel looking happy and smiley, looking at Ellie petting the giraffe, and you're like, this is the first time you've seen him crack a smile. And one thing I want to mention as well, those giraffes are not CGI. They got a real giraffe.
Oh yeah, I saw that on Twitter as well. People kind of going, "Oh, those giraffes look so clunky or something," and then
that's just because no one's ever seen a man pet a giraffe, probably, and the brain just can't compute. It's like, that's fake. But no, a real giraffe. Real giraffe.
Yeah, no, I saw the I didn't see the behind the scenes. I saw a still image of, or maybe it was a couple images of them, and there's this kind of big window where the giraffe's head is sticking through, but it's a real giraffe. Yeah. So that was really cool. It was a gorgeous scene. It was really, really nice. So I definitely enjoyed that a lot. I didn't know it was like a kind of a famous
it was a
standout scene, but I could imagine it being that if it's straight from the game.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where I just kind of said to myself early on, I know that they're going to have this scene in it. I can't really remember why it's so iconic, but it is. But you mentioned there that they're about to read puns to each other, and they read some good puns, by the way. Some good ones, I enjoyed, and then they get abducted. But it's not one of those things that like every movie has, where like someone's walking and then like out of shot, a hand like smacks someone over the head and they're unconscious. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah,
how they're
cool.
walking,
you see them sneaking up.
You see people in the background sneaking up on them. Yeah, I just thought the direction there was quite cool.
It was, but geez, poor Joe, like it's an absolute like smashed in the back of the head with a gun. I was like, that could kill him.
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes I don't like how in movies or in series, sometimes they just really play down what the butt of a gun to your head can actually do. Like, you could be like, you could be out for a long time. You could wake up speaking another language.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know what's going on.
You could wake up dead in the morning. But so Joel then wakes up and realizes that Ellie is gone. She's been prepped for surgery. So the nurse tells Joel that Ellie's cordyceps are in the brain and they need to be surgically removed for just a chance of a cure. And then, of course, Joel is reluctant, or he doesn't want to hear this news, and he's kind of acting out. acting the Mick.
Acted
out. Well, I was gonna.
He really acted out. Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about that. I mean, just when he was getting a little bit aggressive, and then he gets ushered away. But yeah, then he acts out big time and like brutally murders nearly everyone in the building. And I suppose this was kind of one of the things where I kind of thought at the start of the episode, there's no way they can do it, because obviously it's in the game. It takes way longer but of course it would, because it's a game. So like that's gameplay mechanics where you're running around shooting.
Yeah, sure.
They only need to show that in like 2 minutes, and they did it perfectly well. I just thought, I want to hear your thoughts on this, because like just the way there's almost no music.
This was what I mentioned at the start of this episode, that this was the main moment that made me think again, like, this came from a game.
Yeah, okay.
And but not in a bad way, but just because I was like, I want to play this level.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I imagine this part is just class. You're sneaking around a hospital and you just objective just murder everyone until you find Ellie.
You just murder everyone.
Like there was so cool. Like there was just different parts where that part where he comes up to some guy and there's a guy that I don't know if he's run out of bullets or something, and he just puts his gun down. He's like hands up. He's like, yeah, and you're just like, he's just gonna kill that guy, and he does. And you're kind of going, because I think also having the scene that we spoke about just before of how he admits his love for Ellie, basically admits that she is now the thing that's healed him of this scar that he's had all like for so many years. For how it was like 20 years or something since his daughter's
20 years,
away.
2003.
And he's admitting that he's like, time didn't heal it, you've healed it. So he's basically saying, I've had this open wound for 20 years, you finally come into my life and healed it. And as I said, it's not even just that this has happened in the last few weeks. Maybe he's only kind of just realizing this and verbalizing it in this moment. Yeah. And then literally to go from there for 1 hour later to be waking up in a place and someone saying, we're going to kill your new daughter. Yeah. It's like, no, this shit's not happening. So I think that was a really good scene to have to explain his kind of complete meltdown, to kind of go,
absolutely.
Look, I don't care how important it is that, she be sacrificed to try and have this one small chance at finding a cure. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna save her because she's my girl. And if the whole world burns because of it, well, fuck them all, basically. So
let them.
I thought that was amazing. I thought it was brilliantly done. And I was on Team Joel. I think
100%.
my girlfriend, my girlfriend was kind of like going, oh no, he shouldn't do it, and it should be her choice. He should wake her up and ask her. I was like, fuck that. No, just kill everyone.
Kill everyone, absolutely. And this is again where I already mentioned it in the last episode. But this is where we get to see the real Joel, the Joel you play in the game as, and like he's not a good man. He may have like a good heart, good intentions, but he is violent and he's ultimately selfish as well when he makes the choice that he does. But like just the way you explained why he does is absolutely true, and you relate to him. He gets into the surgical room and brutally murders one of the surgeons, which you can do in the game as well. When you go in there, there's like 3 surgeons, and if you want, you can walk up to Ellie and press triangle and just pick her up, or else you could just like shoot, because one of them does have a knife in the game, and you can just shoot him in the head. And like, I just thought that
was so funny. Cool. The surgeon was like, I can't let you have her. He's like, bang.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you're going to put up a fight? Yeah, well, you're dead. That was amazing.
And then another... I know this happens a tiny bit later, but we'll just go in chronological order here. But an amazing scene where Marlene finds him in the car park, offers him the chance to give up, and then she's murdered in cold blood while she begs for her life. I just thought that is stunning.
I really like that about this show, how in other series you could see where she's wounded and she's on the ground and she's like, oh please, and they're like, no, and they just turn their back and walk away. And that kind of typical thing of the James Bond villain who's like, I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to put you in a situation, like the thing that like Austin Powers pulled the pit out of a lot, like, I'm going to put you in a dangerous situation which is very easy for you to escape from, and I'm going to just assume it all goes to plan and that you'll die. And I think that happens in lots of other games where it's like, oh my god, they didn't die, they came back. It's like, and in this he's just like, yeah, you're probably going to come after her. And he doesn't even give her a chance to like respond. He just shoots her in the head.
And even just the direction of that, he's like, you'll only go looking for her, bang, and then the scene ends, and it's just so brutal. You don't even get to see his emotion after. It's just... Yeah,
I like how quick it is. I like that just swiftness of just how fast his decision making is for how he's just going to end the life of this person.
So good.
Yeah.
So then Ellie wakes up in the back of Joel's car, Joel lies about how Ellie isn't really special, which I think is one thing that kind of affects her, because she does hold on to the fact that she believes she's special and she's got a purpose in this world, but also that they haven't been able to do anything thus far with all the other the apparent other people that are immune as well. So Ellie seems annoyed and in disbelief. Joel also mentions that Raiders attacked. We barely got out the skin of her teeth. All this again, the exact same as the game. Ellie turns just like she does in the game, and then they're hiking towards Tommy. And one change from the game here is Ellie then admits to Joel about Riley and how she had to kill her. Again, obviously they couldn't include this in the game because that was DLC that came out later. But then, just like the game, she asks if everything with the Fireflies is true on how it went down. Like, swear it to me. Yeah. And then Joel lies. And then,
again, this is another thing that my girlfriend was like, "Oh, you should tell her the truth." I'm like, "No, lie to her." Lie to her because you love her.
And I remember completing this game, and it was the exact way it played out, where Joel is like, or she's like, "Swear to me that everything went down," and Joel says, "I swear it," and then she just goes, "Okay," and then the game ends, and I was just like, I don't know how I should feel.
Really?
I was like, I
don't know
myself.
Okay, so
do you know
the game ends like that?
Yeah, and I thought maybe they wouldn't end it the same way. I thought maybe they wouldn't end with Ellie saying okay. I thought maybe they'd just be like
Ellie, him saying I swear.
Yeah, maybe. I swear it, and then Ellie just maybe a close up on her face, but she says okay, and I was like, it's perfect. I just think it's so good, but I think at the time as well, when I played the game for the first time, obviously I didn't know there was going to be a second game coming out, but like I just didn't know how to feel. I was like, I just feel dirty inside. I feel like I've completed the game, but I don't feel complete in my soul.
Do you know what I was thinking this whole time? While I was watching that scene, I was just so upset that, you know, she comes out, she's in like her surgery gown, and then she's like, "Oh, my clothes," and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll get you some clothes on the way." And then in a couple of scenes later, we see her, or like the next scene, I suppose, she's walking around and she's back in like some flannel shirt with her tomboy look, and I'm like, oh no, she's lost her pun book. I was like, we're not going to get any more puns.
I think that pun book was...
I was so upset.
I think that pun book was volume 2, so maybe they'll find volume 1 along the way. I don't know. But yeah, good thought. So anyways, overall thoughts, Johnny? Well, just before actually I ask you, I just want to say that I think, in my opinion, that off the top of my head, I think this is probably one of the best and closely adapted things that I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen something, do you know when books go to films or TV shows or whatever, there's always big changes. Like, the very minimal changes in this, right down to the dialogue. So I thought that was good, but I also just thought it was brilliantly done. Like, really, really well done. So, yeah.
Well, I think this is what happens when you get complete rights to what you want to make. That if you have the complete backing of, if it doesn't matter if it's a book or if it's a game or whatever, if the person that's selling you the rights is just like, use everything, use it word for word, use it verbatim if you want, that's completely fine. You could really make amazing shit, because you're gonna, I mean, I don't know, if it's good enough to become adapted, it's probably at a base level where the writing is really good in the first place. Let filmmakers do what they do best, which is make films and make visual, visual pieces, and then let the authors do what they do best, which is add the dialogue and the character development. And when those two things come together, you're going to get something like pretty class. I think when you get stuff that's developed and it's adapted, and it's like, okay, you have some of the rights, you don't have all the rights, you don't have the rights to the dialogues, but you can use the characters. It's like, that's when it can get a bit messy, and you know, it's not going to be such a sure thing for a definite, like, successful project. But I think this is what you see. This is what you get when it's just like, okay, here you have the rights to everything, and it's going to be a massive success. People that have played the game originally, they're going to feel, you know, represented, to be very 2023, by like kind of going, oh, that's exactly the way it happens, and that's great, and whatever. And so, yeah, I just thought that was, you know, masterfully done. And as a person then, from my perspective, that I'd never played the game, for me, it just seemed like a fantastic show. There was, as I said, there was one or two parts that I was like, oh, yeah, I can see it's come from a game, or at least I could say, oh, I would love to play this scene as a game, which is never a thought that I would have watching another type of series. But I only had those thoughts because I knew it
Exactly.
came from a game. If I never knew that, if I'd never heard of the game and just watched the series, I would never have thought that this was had been developed from a game. So again, that really speaks volumes to the way that it's been developed as well. So overall thoughts, loved the show, really really loved it. It was one of those shows that it became one of those things that you're waiting for that day of the week to roll around again, so you're getting to see the next episode. And as I said, even as we already mentioned today, out of 9 episodes in a series, 2 of them are going completely on a bit of a tangent and not really developing the main plot, and you're still really in love with these characters. Even maybe the best episode of all is still, in my opinion, maybe episode 3, where it's none of the main characters really are in it, and that's huge. Props to the writers as well. I think or the developers. It was amazing, and I thought the casting was perfect for almost everything. I'd say again, we mentioned already that the character
Melanie
of the
Lewinsky.
leader of the Fireflies.
Yeah.
I didn't like her casting. But
It was
I
a
think
weird
everything
choice.
else-
That was it's probably one of the only negatives in the whole show.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's the only negative that I would put down. I think everything else.
I
really liked.
heard a lot of people online complaining that there wasn't enough infected zombies, and I suppose when I hear that, I'm like, yeah, okay, I suppose, but like there wasn't once where I finished an episode and I was like, do you know what? I didn't see enough infected there. Like, it's just the story, and who cares? Like, you don't want to fall into the trap of the Walking Dead, where it kind of, there had to be at least one action scene where a zombie attacks or 2 zombies attack, and I was like, yeah, but that's, you don't
need that.
Like,
You didn't need that. That had become too formulaic.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think it keeps you on your toes more when you're like, we haven't seen a zombie for a couple episodes. Jesus, we're going to definitely get a few now. That kind of thing. And it's like, I think I've seen a lot of those arguments as well online. I think most people that have that argument are probably people who have played the game and want this scene to play out exactly as it does in the game as well. Like they want, I don't know, they're saying, in the game in this part there was way more zombies in that scene, and I can understand that as well. But
I don't think there is. I think everything is exactly the same. But the fact that it feels like there's more zombies in the game is because all the time that you're not playing those cutscenes, like where the actual story takes place, you're not really in control. Do you know?
You're just killing zombies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're either just killing generic men or killing zombies, and like
when you spoke about the hospital scene there. Obviously, in a game, you could be playing that scene for an hour, just like wandering around, just murdering people the whole time. And eventually kind of go, all right, I'm going to complete my mission now. But like there could be just like random zombies everywhere, or random evil character or evil men, or the enemy, whatever you want to call them. But in a TV series, that's just not the way it's going to work out. Like, I mean, first of all, it wouldn't make sense for him to just be crawling around for an hour killing people, where there's more chance of them calling in backup. There's more chance of them securing her. Like, by the time he got to the surgery room where they were operating, they didn't even know what was going on. Like they hadn't been alerted to the fact that there's a man coming to try and kill you all and take the girl. Like, it happened so quickly that's another reason why that made sense as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I agree with you, and I disagree with that argument that you need to have more zombies for whatever scene. It doesn't make any sense. If the story is good enough to stand on its own, it doesn't need visual zombies or whatever.
I think as well, like even when the game came out and there was no prospect of a TV show, like so long ago, one of the things that people talked about was like how scary the zombies are, but oh my god, it makes people seem 10 times worse. And you get to see that in the second game as well. Like people are the real horror in this show and in the game.
People are the zombies.
People are the zombies. So one of my only negatives was that there just wasn't more episodes, or there wasn't more of it. But I think keep the people wanting more is always better than oversaturating the market. But I would just ask you before we close up. I'm obviously not going to give any input. I'm not going to agree or disagree, but I just wanted you to give me some sort of prediction for anything that happens in season 2, just to see where your head's at. And I'm not going to say anything, by the way.
Sometimes I don't even like to speculate for myself, just because I don't like to put myself in that headspace, because I might get it right and then I might feel like I've given myself a spoiler. So sometimes I like to go just completely with my normal state of being, which is my brain completely blank. That's what I like. But if you're to ask me now, I would say there's probably what's going to happen. There's probably going to be some tension at some point between Joel and Ellie. I imagine maybe Ellie's going to find out that Joel was bullshitting, and then there's going to be a big, that'll come back to bite him in the arse.
Like a zombie.
Yeah, if she bites him in the arse, then he's done. So that might happen. I don't know. As you just mentioned, we're probably going to see more evil men in the series rather than just evil zombies. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much because I don't know, and I don't want to say something and then gauge your reaction and think like, oh, that is going to happen now. So I don't know. We'll see.
No, and the good thing is as well,
I definitely will be watching.
Yeah, I have also probably, even though the second game is more recent, I've again forgotten a lot of what goes on there, but it's a good game. Actually, one thing is that apparently, I didn't know this at the time, but apparently a lot of people don't like the second game for some reason. I loved it. I thought it was deadly, but I think it's just because it's newer, and newer things people judge more.
Yeah, and people are nostalgic for the first one, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. Anyways, I think we'll wrap up there. So, guys, thank you very much for listening to this long episode of summary of 4 episodes of The Last of Us. I absolutely loved it. It seems like Johnny absolutely loved it as well. So, it's a big thumbs up from us, 10 out of 10. What would you rate it? But yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.